Maple Leafs man advantage, I'm going to take a look at a couple of trades that were made by the Toronto Maple Leafs before the 1967-68 NHL season and take a look at all the players and see if they were good trades or not. So, the first one, after winning his eighth Stanley Cup, fourth with the Leafs, Red Kelly figured it was time to hang the skates up. He thought he'd give coaching a try, stay in the game, just stand behind the bench now. For the Leafs, though, they already had Punch and Black behind the bench, standing strong. So, along with King Clancy as well. Um, so, for the Leafs at the NHL level, there was not really any room for Red to step behind the Toronto Maple Leaf bench. So on June the 8th, the day after the NHL draft, the Leafs traded the rights of Red Kelly to the Los Angeles Kings for newly acquired defenseman Ken Block. He was picked up in the 17th round by the Kings from the New York Rangers in the 1967 expansion draft just 2 days prior. In the end, Ken played just one game for the Canucks, the Vancouver Canucks, before he did jump over to the WHA. And he did get playing time there. He played 455 games there, with 16 goals, 187 assists for 203 points. I don't even have to think about this one. Boom, giving it the green light, whatever. Even if you get a bag of peanuts, which looks like you did, for Red Kelly, I'm going to give it the green light. I do not believe in standing in someone like Red Kelly's way, for him to become a coach. Go for it. Um, and then with Red as well, he coached the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then he did come back to Toronto and coach the Leafs in the 1970s. So Red's going to be back behind the Toronto bench at some point. Originally, Punch Imlach, the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, was asking for high quality players like Terry Sawchuk, who the Kings picked up in the first round from the Leafs. Um, he was asking for that, for the rights to Red Kelly. But it took a couple days, and maybe Imlach coming back to earth in his request demands. And this trade was able to unfold. You could get Ken Block for Red Kelly. Um, Definitely Punch was right not wanting the Red to just walk away for nothing. They still had the rights to the guy, even though he's going to retire, which is interesting. But personally, I would have done this much differently if he was asking for Terry Sawchuk for Red Kelly. I would have done this differently and maybe with a little bit more class too. Red Kelly is a Hall of Famer. He won four Stanley Cups in Toronto. Everyone that was a fan of the Leafs in the 60s, I'm sure they would speak glowingly of Red Kelly, a centerman for them. And as I said in an earlier blog, I would have looked at that and see what we can do to make things transpire a lot smoother than they may have went. I mean, it only took a couple of days, but um, I don't know. It's yeah, just to make it smoother for Red and allowing him to go on to become a coach and cut ties with Toronto. Of course, um, with Punch having such a negative impact on some of the players, it does make me wonder if using my superpower, my 2020 hindsight, um, and certainly not saying this would bring the Stanley Cup to Toronto on its own, but what if you fire Punch Imlach? I know he just won a Stanley Cup, but they're not going to win another one as of yet. Why don't you fire Punch um, and then bring in Red Kelly as your coach? Um, I he would he would be coming in fresh. He would certainly know the game, though. He played many years in the NHL, but a lot of the Stanley Cup winning vets that were with the Leafs at the time probably would take a real liking to having their old teammate and friend, Red Kelly, as their coach. rather than the disciplinarian and perhaps the militaristic Punch Imlach. You'd have a different voice behind the bench than what you had. Now they're not now another option is you could talk Punch out of just being the general manager due to health concerns. He did have health problems the previous year with his heart, and maybe cutting down his duties would help him for health concerns. And you could put Red Kelly in there as your coach. Um, Punch could still be the GM. Or even if you get rid of Punch, you can have King Clancy as your GM. I think he was the assistant general manager at this time. So um, I'm pretty sure he'd be able to step into that role to become the general manager. But I'm not sure of the relationship between Red Kelly and Punch Imlach. Would Red really want to do that? Would he want to work under Punch Imlach? Or would Punch Imlach want to step aside as coach? My guess is likely not, and allow Red to step in behind the bench and work under him. Um, I don't know if that is possible either because I think they would be a very different way of coaching. Red would have been than Punch Imlach. Um, I don't know. And then like even if in the end, you could also throw out there, even if Red can't stand behind the bench, maybe you could let Punch go and have King Clancy as your general manager and your coach. He certainly, I feel, could do both of those positions as well. Um, but it's up to you. You can make up your own mind on that question, I guess. Would you just go with what you have at this point, or promote King Clancy, or put him behind the bench, or put Red Kelly behind the bench, and have either Imlock or King Clancy as the general manager? Personally, I feel because Punch had just won a Stanley Cup, um, I, I I just I can't fire the guy. The guy just won a Stanley Cup, so I think I would. As they said in the movie Animal House, he'd be on double secret probation, though. Due to stories I have heard with him, certainly with Frank Mahovlich, Carl Brewer, who's no longer on the team, Mike Shaky Walton, another one. I think even Jim Pappin. Stories from these guys. It wasn't fun for them at all. Um, I would wait for an opportunity and then I would let Punch go, and it would be much sooner than what happened in in reality. So, anyways, now I'm going to talk about the other trade, and this happened right before the beginning of the season. It happened on October the 12th, 1967. It was actually just one day before the season started. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Oakland Seals made a deal. The Leafs received J.P. Parise and Brian Hextall Jr., and going to Oakland was Jerry Amen. This one, at first glance, I think I'm going to like this one a lot. So we're going to jump into who comes to Toronto first. And first, we'll look at J.P. Parise. He had played the parts of two seasons with the Boston Bruins. He'd only played 21 games so far in the NHL, but he had 2 goals and 2 assists. He was also known as Jeep. That was his nickname. He would go on to play actually just one game with the Leafs before they traded him off to the Minnesota North Stars, where I think he began to truly carve out his NHL career. Um, After he was traded from Toronto, he would go on to play 868 games, get 236 goals with 353 assists for 589 points. He went on to score 20 goals 7 times in his career. He had a career high 27 in 1972-73 for the North Stars. He also played for the New York Islanders, the Cleveland Barons, and went back to Minnesota at the end of his career to play with the North Stars for one season. He was also a two-time All-Star in 1970 and 73. And he was also, after his playing days, he was an assistant coach for the Minnesota North Stars for three different stints. So 1980 through 83, 1984, 85, that particular season, and then 1986 through 88. His son actually played in the NHL. I think he's retired now. I think last year was his final season. His son is Zach Parise. He played in the NHL, and I would say he may have outdone his dad. He scored 434 goals, and he played 1,254 games, and he played for 19 years. So that's good, real good father-son combo there. But JP Parise would be coming to the Leafs. Now, the other one, it is a hockey family as well. Hextall was a second generation of Hextalls that played in the NHL. His father, Brian Sr., was a Hall of Famer who played with the New York Rangers in the 1930s and 40s and won a Stanley Cup. I believe that was 1940. His brother Dennis ended up playing 681 games in the NHL, and his son, is Ron Hextall, who I would say most famously played for the Philadelphia Flyers. And he grabbed 296 wins in his career in the NHL. Brian Jr., by this point, had played one season back in 1962-63 for the New York Rangers. He played 21 games and he had two assists. Unfortunately, he never did play a game with the Leafs, but he would end up playing 528 more games. He would end up playing 528 more games. There we go. He would get 99 goals and 159 assists for 258 points. He was also a bit of a roughhouser. Not surprising. I remember Ron in net, and he was one of the craziest goalies I remember in the NHL. Another one was Billy Smith. But Ron was crazy in the net. He wasn't afraid to fight, drop the gloves. But his dad, Brian, he had 728 penalty minutes over the course of his career. And he scored 20 goals on a couple of occasions. And he had a career high 21 in 1972-73 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he also played for the Atlanta Flames, Detroit Red Wings, and the Minnesota North Stars. So now going to Oakland. Jerry Amon was one of those players that was likely good enough to play in the NHL. I think he was. He was coming from that six-team league where, boy, there was a lot of players that were good enough. There were just so few teams, so few positions on a roster. Um, but now that there's 12 teams, Jerry's getting his chance to get everyday playing time, which he richly deserved. Um, So by this point, Jerry had played 132 games with 27 goals, 32 assists for 59 points. He actually even won the 1964 Stanley Cup with the Leafs. Excellent job there. Jerry would go on to play 297 more games with 69 goals, 86 assists for 155 points. He ended up scoring 21 goals in 1968-69 for the Seals. So you're showing some good offensive talent there going to Oakland. So that's it. No doubt that would make this trade in a heartbeat. Um, you're going to get JP Parise as well as Brian Hextall. Um, you gave up Jerry Amon. Um, he wasn't in your lineup anyway, so I think that's great. A great trade for Toronto. It's just keep a hold of these guys. Maybe. We'll see when those trades come about, if they should have made those trades. But yeah, that's great because JP, this upcoming season, I'm going to show you my roster for the team. It's going to be a little different than what Punch put out. But I'm going to see if I can get Parise on my everyday lineup for the Leafs, playing left wing. So there you have it. That was a lot of fun. So that was a couple of trades that the Leafs made before the season, and boom, give the thumbs up to both of them. No problems with either of them. So that's good. So yeah, if you like this video, don't be afraid to hit like or subscribe. There's going to be lots of videos on here about the Toronto Maple Leafs and why they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. And if you want to comment on anything, go ahead and do so. I'd appreciate that. That'd be real cool. But, anyways, have yourself an excellent day.